You're listening to Montreal Now on CJAD 800.
That is James Mennie over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, a couple of breaking news stories. Let's first start off with this poll revealing Quebecers are not big fans of the latest budget. Wow, that's stunning news.
Well, stunning news, but it comes at a very, very bad time because it's like every time Francois Legault, is taking one shot, he gets hit with a left jab and staggers towards the ropes. He thinks he's going to recover, but no, then something else happens. And believe me, the findings of this survey, NTVA, which is where your average CAQ supporter goes for his or her information, is not good. 58% of those surveyed found the budget to be bad or very bad. 16% found it good or very good, although in that 16%, only 1% found it to be very good. But here's the real landmine. One of the findings of this survey is, okay, you know what? Reduce spending, that's fine, okay? Don't you dare raise my taxes. That's the message that this survey is sending to the government. Here's the problem. Unless Francois Legault can pull the same kind of a miracle as the lady did with the pizza and the gnocchi with Dr. Joe, this ain't going to happen. We are going to have tax increases. What's interesting as well is whereas the survey found that in various things such as increases on tobacco products, increases on pensions for seniors with disabilities, that found favor. 45% and 52% respectively did not like the idea of having tax credits for businesses that maintain jobs for seniors, would have that eliminated. Or, and this is very interesting given what you've been talking about this afternoon, the end of grants for the purchase of electric vehicles. They may have really slipped in at this time in terms of their choices. But once again, and I mentioned this after the budget was done, this is not just going to be another one of those, staid, boring economic exercises. This is something that's going to be around this government's neck for a very long time to come. And it's going to be very interesting to see how or if this government can deal with it.
So that's one story today. Another story today concerns itself with Anthony Housefather. This is very much gathering steam, if you will, this afternoon. Yeah. Pondering his political future as a member of the federal Liberals after this vote yesterday that the NDP put up with.
It's difficult to say because we've spoken about it at length on the station, which is essentially what began as a very, radical motion submitted to the House that would have seen Canada recognize a Palestinian state became so watered down that it turned into, support of a two-nation solution, calling for a ceasefire, having Hamas lay down their arms. However, for Mr. Housefather and two other MPs, this never should have happened in the first place. They voted against it. And whereas it's kind of funny because you'll recall that Anthony Housefather as well was the lone Liberal MP to vote against injecting Bill 96 into the Official Languages Act. But he didn't turn around at that point and say he was considering his future or considering his place in the party. And I find it very, very interesting that he did say that today. Because on the one hand, you can say Anthony Housefather, I wouldn't say he's the conscience of the Federal Liberal Party, but he's certainly the conscience of Anthony Housefather. He does not sway from that. And he is not Justin Trudeau's man. Just a very quick history lesson. He was not Justin Trudeau's choice for Mount Royal riding. Mount Royal chose Anthony Housefather, and they've been very happy with the choice since then. But for him to come and say that out loud, given the other context, is, will Trudeau stay? Will he go? How far down will the Liberals plummet in the polls before something somewhere breaks? It's very, very interesting. But, man, I would have a lot of questions for Anthony Housefather in terms of what led him to speak up in this particular instance and what indeed he will or can do certainly as far as I'm concerned, one of the most steadfast Liberals with a capital or a lowercase l that I've ever encountered. But yeah, a very, very interesting development, and not yet another, as we say in these parts, tile on the head for Justin Trudeau.
You know, you wonder, Jim, in the past, when someone has broken ranks with the party, right, on votes like this, typically there's payback. And in his case, there was a demotion, if you will, for a while.
Yeah.
Then he got to be parliamentary secretary. You kind of wonder what goes through Justin Trudeau's mind when he hears this kind of thing.
Or even if he notices it anymore. Because, I mean, one of the things, and I noticed this, and it's been mentioned by Tom Mulcair on several occasions as well, you get the impression, and I've gotten the impression, and I think a lot of people within the caucus, within the administration, and within the party, is that Justin Trudeau has already checked out. But for some reason, he's playing this game in public. No, I'm going to stay on. Yes, it's a very difficult job, and I thought about quitting, but no, I'm going to stay on. I think to a certain extent, his ego is in palliative care. But all that said, he's going to have to come down one side or another. Things like this, things like Mr. Housefather today, are the last things on earth that Justin Trudeau needs, especially when you have a Quebec MP, an MP who comes from a part of the only remaining part of Canada where the Liberals may have a shot at holding their own. The rest of the country, if you believe the polls, the rest of the country are done with Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party. So, I mean, as I say, do not underestimate the weight of this. On the one hand, we are talking about Anthony Housefather. We are talking about his view of a particular situation. But on the other, we're also talking about a great deal more. And I think this story is going to transcend, the feelings or the ethics of Anthony Housefather. I think it's going to, once again, come back to square one, which is it has, Justin Trudeau really, really overstayed his welcome with the Liberals in Ottawa.
We shall see. Let me go on to something else. I started the show today by asking what people thought of Pierre Fitzgibbon's comments. Here we go again. Too many cars on the road, too many SUVs sold in Quebec, but don't worry, I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm going to hand it off to municipalities.
What the hell is that about? I mean, really, and this is so typical of this government, right? No, you shouldn't do this, but you know what? I'm going to hand it off. It's the same thing with Christian Dubé. We need big changes in the health care network. I'm the health minister, but I'm going to hand that off to a new agency called, Santé Québec. Same thing with the transport ministry. Same thing with the education ministry. It's like these suits come in here, they get named to cabinet, and the first thing they do, like any other corporate hack, is find ways to staff their jobs out to somebody else. That may work in corporate Quebec or in corporate Canada. It sure as hell doesn't work in government. And right now, we're seeing the CAQ pay the price for that negligence every single day.
Jim, last thing I want to ask you about, this is going to be my question coming up. I'm curious what your take is on Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon calling out the media for having covered this threat that was made against him and his family, and his reaction, which surprised me.
You know what? I have to tell you, if you were talking to me 30 years ago, I'd have hopped up and down and huffed and puffed. It's his own damn business. He was the guy who got the threat. He is the guy whose family got threatened. If he's not happy with the way it got covered, with the way he was treated, that's his business. And for someone to turn around and say, well, listen, you should, if you get in the public sphere, you've got to be ready for that. I love that these comments are coming online from people who were so heroic they identify themselves as El Diablo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Give me a break. We know that these threats are being made. We know that these threats are sadly becoming the currency of political discourse in Quebec. And quite frankly, if Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, who politically I'm not a fan of, but as a family man, as an individual, says, you know what, you guys went too far in doing this. You guys played this a little too hard. That's for him to say. And I'm not saying that, my business committed some professional error, but I'm not going to turn around and say you're wrong. He's the guy who got threatened. He's the guy who's got the last word.
Oh, I want to understand, when you say the last word, when the media is looking to find out more, you think it should have stopped at the level where it was reported and let it go at that point?
Well, absolutely. He doesn't even know how it became public.
Okay, fair enough.
You know what I mean? Okay. And the fact is, it clearly affected him. Francois Legault has received death threats. He's been questioned. Justin Trudeau has received death threats. He's been questioned about that as well. You know, different people will handle it different ways. And don't get me started on the number of women politicians and women journalists who have been putting up with this for decades, okay? And we didn't hear a peep about, you know, how that affected them. But here's a guy, and you know, like I say, you can't damn him for his honesty. His reaction was his own. It's up to him. But, you know, if you're looking to find, as far as I'm concerned, if you're looking to find a good guy in this story, or should have or shouldn't have, I don't think it's there. I think when this guy was going through for him what appears to have been a rather traumatic experience, and should they have cut him more slack? Maybe, but as I say, in the end, it's up to him. He was the victim.
Okay. James Mennie at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
Madam.
Let's go to